External influences on business activity. Role of government, economic constraints and enablers.
The government plays a significant role in determining the performance of small and large business enterprises. It enforces a variety of policies in the country having a direct impact on the ability of a business to achieve its goals. Two of the most important such policies are the fiscal and monetary policies that are instrumental in regulating the economy of the country.
The fiscal policy primarily revolves around taxation and public expenditure. The government generates revenue through direct and indirect taxes. A direct tax is levied directly on the income of an individual, commonly known as the income tax, whereas an indirect tax is imposed on goods and services, usually charged as a part of the final price. It is commonly known as the VAT, value-added tax, or GST, general sales tax. There are three different taxation policies in practice in different parts of the world. Progressive taxation is the one in which the tax rate increases with a rise in income. This method is supported and implemented by countries all over the world since the government can generate a substantial amount of revenue by taxing the higher income groups, leading to a reduction in the gap between the rich and the poor. However, it is an established fact that progressive taxes have a disincentive effect on investors since it discourages growth. Proportional taxation is based on a flat tax rate for all income groups. In case of regressive taxation, the tax rate declines with an increase in income. This strategy proves to be effective in encouraging growth, but obviously could be disastrous in case of the lower income groups. The amount raised through taxation has to be spent on development-oriented projects for the welfare and betterment of the masses. This is technically known as public expenditure or government spending and performs the following major functions. Providing public and merit goods, example streetlights and subsidized health facilities respectively. Social security benefits, example unemployment benefits and pension. Accelerating the rate of economic growth through subsidies. Strengthening strategic industries such as defense and agriculture. The monetary policy is formulated with the purpose of regulating the supply of money in the economy, primarily with the objective of keeping a check on inflation. Inflation, which is a persistent and general increase in prices, is categorized into hyper, suppressed and creeping inflation. Hyperinflation, being experienced in Zimbabwe these days, is the worst form of inflation since it represents a situation in which the currency loses its value to such an extent that it becomes unacceptable as a medium of exchange. People in the country are forced to start using the barter system, goods exchanged for other goods, in order to meet their needs. There is no short-term solution to this, and, in order to resolve the crisis, all the currency notes in circulation have to be replaced by newly printed notes with a different value. Suppressed inflation, also known as demand pull inflation, is experienced when the demand exceeds supply, and the resulting shortage often leads to a sharp increase in prices. This can be countered by raising the level of production through better utilization of the available resources. The third form of inflation is creeping, cost push inflation, in which the final prices are increased since the cost of production has risen. Usually the annual increase in price is 1% to 6%, and this is something commonly observed since wage rates, cost of raw material, transportation costs etc. always increase with the passage of time. It is an established fact that an excessive supply of money in the economy, without being backed up by a specific amount of gold, leads to a decline in its value. Therefore, the government authorities adopt a variety of methods to keep a check on the supply of money. Broadly speaking, the government either uses an approach in which the printing of new notes is controlled, or a tighter credit policy is enforced in order to discourage banks from lending too much money. In this context, the following instruments of monetary policy are commonly applied by the government authorities. Central bank's discount rate. This is the rate at which the central bank of the country lends money to the commercial banks. In order to control the supply of money, and subsequently inflation, the discount rate is often increased. It discourages the commercial banks from borrowing large amounts of money from the central bank, and hence they will not be in a position to offer credit facilities to consumers at low interest rates. Special deposits. The government may instruct the commercial banks to deposit a specific amount of money with the central bank in order to control the supply of money. This amount, often termed as frozen assets, is not released unless there is
definite improvement in the situation regarding inflation.
Open market operations. Bonds are issued and publicized so that the masses are encouraged to invest in this sector. The amount collected by the government through the launch of bonds and other similar instruments helps control the circulation of money and hence inflation. People spend substantial sums of money, considering it to be a safe investment, once the bonds mature after a certain period of time. Funding. This instrument of monetary policy is similar to the above-mentioned open market operations, with the only difference that funding is a long-term measure since the bonds mature after a longer period of time. It is recommended when the inflation rates are critically high. Qualitative and quantitative control. Qualitative control is exercised when the government instructs commercial banks to be more selective while approving loan applications. Credit should be offered purely on merit, keeping in mind the contribution of the applicant towards the economic growth of the country. For instance, exporters should be favored in this connection. Similarly, the government sets a limit to the maximum amount of money that can be offered as loan within a given period of time. This measure, just like qualitative control, proves to be useful in controlling the supply of money in the economy. Regulating hire purchase contracts. If the government has a relaxed policy in context of hire purchase contracts, consumers tend to spend beyond their means, which may cause inflation. Therefore, governments are known for tightening up their hire purchase policies with the objective of keeping a check on rising inflation rates. By taking steps such as increasing the rate of interest, they discourage consumers from availing hire purchase facilities.